Hey guys, it's Adam with Carnage Comics and Cards, and I'm doing a Commander video today, and it's going to be over all the Commanders so far this year in 2024, and ones that I think are the most interesting and exciting to build. So the first up is Marvo Deep Operative, and this is from Karlov Manor, our first set that we're going to be taking a look at from 2024. We're not going to talk about Ravnica Remastered, and we're not going to talk about any reprints in any of the sets. So Marvo is a Octopus Rogue for 5 that says, whenever you win a clash, draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value 8 or less without paying its mana cost. When it attacks, you and defending player clash. So what is clash? Clash is an old keyword that says each clashing player reveals the top card of their library, then puts that card on the top or bottom. A player wins if their card had a higher mana value. So this is the first commander I've seen that utilizes the clash mechanic, and it also allows you to play a spell for free that's 8 or less, which is interesting because it's an octopus, right? 8 legs. So it is a 1/8, which is, again, thematic. So what do I like about this card? Well, I like that you can pump it full of just big stomping creatures. So you're talking krakens, leviathans, octopus, anything like that. Like, you get a sea theme with it. It's very thematic, and it's very unique for Commander. So I really like this one. The next one is the Pride of Hull Clade. He's a Crocodile Elk Turtle. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. Defender. Pay 4 until end of turn. Target creature you control gets +1/+0. Gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw cards equal to its toughness. And can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So there's other cards that have like the Defender theme going on. This is in Simic, which I think is the first for this theme. And what I like about it is the card draw. It's just crazy card draw, and you're gonna be able to play it for really cheap. It's just a fun and different spin on the Defender theme, and I love that it's a Crocodile Elk Turtle. So that one's just, again, pretty fun. So next up, Aurelia, the Law Above. If you've seen any of my previous content, you know I've built this commander deck. I think this is very fun and unique. She's different than most other angels, and it is a unique thing to do in Boros. Boros usually doesn't do tokens or goad, and that's exactly what this is. So for 5, you get Flying, Vigilant, Haste. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. Whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia the Law Above deals 3 damage to each of your opponents, and you gain 3 life. So this, with the other card, War Leader's Call, you're going to put out a bunch of tokens, you're going to drain your enemy, you're going to gain life, and then you could also goad and gift your opponent creatures. So there's lots of different ways you can go with this commander, and I think it provides for a lot of creativity and unique gameplay. We got Andrag the Quake Mole, legendary creature mole god. So just a creature type alone makes this worth the price of admission. However, when it becomes blocked, you untap each creature you control. After this combat, there is an additional combat phase. You can pay 7, and Andrag must be blocked each combat this turn if able. So the idea with this is to pay that cost and force your opponents to block Andrag, giving him some sort of protection and giving yourself multiple combats. That is what this commander deck is all about, multiple combats, and I think that's first for Gruul. However, I love that he's a 4 for 8/4, and there's just a lot of fun Gruul things that you can do around this guy. And again, look at that art, and look at that creature type. Just a lot of fun. I think that Karlov Manor is actually being missed by a lot of people. I understand it wasn't a popular set, it was really gimmicky, but there was some really good stuff in there. I know it didn't sell well, so if you guys haven't, go back and take a look at some of the cards from Karlov Manor, and maybe do some reevaluating, because Man, I think people are sleeping on a lot of these cards. So Niv Mizzet Guild Pack. This isn't so unique. It I think we've seen the two color thing. I do like that this two color thing. Niv Mizzet's usually a burn down card, but this is 5 colors, and you can also gain life and draw cards for each color pair. So just a fun one. I'm actually building this one. I think there's another 5 color one. I think this one's just better. I think this is just fun. For all the 5 color commanders, to me, this one so far has been the most interesting and fun to build around. Sorry. All right, so now moving on. That was the last one for Call of Manor. Now we're getting into the Fallout series. There's not as many for Fallout. It was a smaller set. I do think there were some really great cards. The first one here being the Wise Mothman, and I think this is a really OP deck. I've seen it. I've not seen it in person. I've not built this, but I've seen it on plenty of YouTube podcasts and videos, YouTube videos. So it's flying. Whenever the Wise Mothman enters the battlefield or attacks, each player gets a rad counter. Whenever one or more non-land creatures are milled, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. So what is a rad counter? Well, rad counter is new with Fallout, and it says that you, at the beginning of your turn, you mill cards based on the number of rad counters you have, and for each non-land card that you mill, you remove a rad counter and take 1 damage. So this revolves around that rad counter theme, and like I said, I've seen this on YouTube videos, and it just kind of takes over. But I love that it's like a mill deck that doesn't just mill your opponent out completely. That there's a purpose to the mill. You're going to pump your creature, and you're going to swing in with this giant Mothman. Next up is Liberty Prime Recharge. So I've theory crafted a deck with this. I think this, of all the energy cards that they've released, is one of the more interesting ones. So Liberty Prime, Vigilance, Trample, Haste. Whenever Liberty Prime Recharge attacks or blocks, sacrifice unless you pay 2 energy. 2 and a tap, sacrifice an artifact, you get 2 energy and draw a card. It is an 8/8. So hasty 8/8 for 5. I love this guy. So the idea here, when I've seen this played, I've seen it played as, I attack on turn 1, turn 2, I tap him, I get 2 energy, turn 3, I attack him. I don't think that's the best way to build this. To me, the way to build this would be to, swing turn 1, play a bunch of cards to give you energy, swing turn 2, 3. I'm not talking about actual turn 1 and 2, but like when you turn 1 when you get this out. So that to me is the way to play this. So you have a Voltron 8/8 in the commander zone that's based on energy. So energy being not a new mechanic, but a mechanic that they brought back for Fallout, and something also they added to MH3, Modern Horizons 3. So to me, that is really cool that you can pull from 2 new sets and fill out this with energy cards. So energy, there's if you just had Fallout, there's not going to be as much there to choose from, so you were kind of limited. But now that they've put it in 2 different sets, like, you have a plethora of options and interesting ways to build this. All right, next up, Mr. House President CEO. I have a friend that has this deck. It is a really cool deck. Whenever you roll a 4 or higher, create a 3/3 robot. If you roll a 6 or higher, create a token and a treasure token. Create that token and a treasure token. So the idea being, you're trying to roll as much as possible. You're getting cards that make you roll dice, and you can pay 4 here, tap it, roll a 6-sided dice plus an additional for each mana from treasure spent to activate this ability. So if you get a bunch of treasures, you get to run a whole bunch of dice. It's just a dice throwing commander, which is not very common. I mean, yes, they did in the D&D set, but I mean, that's where you're getting the support for this. But there's been a few other cards throughout Magic that you can pull in, and plenty of stuff from Fallout. Just a fun, treasure dice throwing deck, and I just think that's a lot of fun and interesting compared to a lot of other commanders. So just another different way to play commander. All right, so this guy here, this little beast noble, loot the key to everything. I talk a lot about him because I love this little guy. I have a deck that I am actually going to build very soon. He's got Ward 1 at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of card types among other non-land permanents you control. You may play those cards this turn. So the idea being at the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to exile a bunch of cards, which is going to then allow you to play a lot of cards, play a lot of your deck each game. If you can get more than one upkeep, you're gonna do a lot of crazy things. But I filled this deck with all the different card types, and then a lot of different payoffs for playing things from exile. So that's what this deck is that I've built, and I think that's how a lot of other people are building it. But well, a lot of other people I think are building it as a CEDH commander, but that's how I see this guy. I think as they get more and more payoffs for playing things from exile, which they've done a lot of, Flaming Tyrannosaur is another example I've talked about with this guy, just getting an advantage for playing things from exile. So a lot of fun, and yeah, I love this cute little picture. Next up is Yuma, Proud Protector. So this is another desert commander. So we only have one other desert commander that I know of. So this one's really fun. It's one less for each land card in your graveyard. If you have a mill deck, you can mill a bunch of lands, and then you can reduce the cost. So when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sacrifice a land. If you do, draw a card. Whenever a desert card is put into your graveyard, create a 4/2 plant warrior creature with reach. So it's creating tokens. It's basically taking advantage of mill and ramp, and just a fun, unique way to play deserts. The only other desert commander, there wasn't a lot of support because there wasn't a ton of deserts. So with allows of Thunder Junction, they added a whole bunch of deserts. So you basically fill your deck with those, and then you get these 4/2 guys trampling over, right? So that's Yuma. Next up is Felix 5 Boots. He's got Menace, Ward 2. If a creature you control dealing combat damage to a player causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control, then that ability triggers an additional time. So whenever you attack, you have an attack trigger. This is doubling attack triggers, which we've not seen before. We've seen the Yarick for permanents coming into the battlefield. It'll double that. I have a video on that again, so if you want to see what that's about, go check that video out. We have Roaming Throne, which is going to double based on your creature type, and so now here we have a doubler for combat. So this is a lot of fun. I've seen it played on some videos and stuff like that. Looks like it would be a fun commander to build. And come on, look at that art. All the art in, all of Thunder Junction, if you like the cowboy theme, has just been, crazy cool. So, all right, next up is Vihane Goldwaker. Other outlaws you control have vigilance and haste. What are outlaws? Outlaws are assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. And this says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have treasures you control become 3/3 construct, assassin, artifact creatures in addition to their other types until end of turn. Wow, what a mouthful. What does this mean? Well, it just means that you're basically playing a treasure commander, and you're going to turn all those treasures into 3/3s, and just a lot of fun and unique way to do treasures, right? So your treasures are creatures in this, and I think that's a lot of fun. If I didn't already have a treasure deck, I have a Kalain, what is it? Something Painter. The Kalain the Painter, right, deck, then I would probably have built this guy. This looks like a lot of fun, and treasures are a blast to play. Next up, this is the only monocolored commander I think I have on this list, Bristly Bill Spinesower. So he's got landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter, pay 5, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. So basically it's a counter deck, and this guy being in green, like there's plenty of support, and he can do it pretty efficiently and better than a lot of other commanders. And I love this doubling effect. So just a fun commander, to play. All right, next up, Jared, Mirror of the Wilds. He's got haste. Non-token creatures you control have Create a token that's a copy of target token you control that enter the battlefield this turn. So whenever you're creating a token, you can take your creatures that aren't tokens, tap them, and create copies of that token. Right? That's a mouthful, but what it means is you play, let's say it's a 2/2 knight vigilance token, and then you play Gyred. Then because he has haste, you can tap it right away, and you can get another one of those 2/2s. So it's a token deck. I've actually theory crafted this. Maybe I'll do a video about it at some point. But the one I've done it's about big BC tokens like giant worms and stuff like that. So a lot of fun. And I built a standard deck around this guy, and I'll probably be doing a video about that soon. I used the Magda, who is the sack the treasures, and you get the 4/4 scorpion dragon. So you use this in conjunction with that, and you can get more 4/4 scorpion dragon. So it's a scorpion dragon deck, which love that creature type. All right, next we have Comball Profiteering Mayor. Whenever one or more tokens enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, for each of them, create a tap token that's a copy of it. This ability triggers only once each turn. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is an anti-aristocrat, anti-token deck, and I love this. The only issue I have is that it's in Orzhov color. So it's like one of those things, if you can't beat them, join them. So I want to do a podcast series at some point, maybe down the road here a few months. One of the topics I want to talk about is aristocrats and just how oppressive aristocrats are. And I hate that you have to, in order to beat aristocrats, you got to play the aristocrat colors. Like, I'd love to be able to play red-green against aristocrats and not feel completely outclassed, but this guy, all the same, a really interesting and different take on Orzhov, which is so heavily filled with aristocrat style commanders and decks. All right, next up we have Leela, Undefeated Slickshot. She's got prowess, and then whenever you cast a multicolored instant or sorcery spell from your hand, exile that spell instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, it becomes plotted. So what's plot? Plot means you can cast it for its cost in this case, and then on a future turn you can cast it again. So really fun way to do copies, and also a fun way to basically do like a spell slinger, because you're going to get a free spell later on, which means that you have more mana to work with and you can cast more spells. So that's a cool one. Next up, I'm sure everyone is aware of this one, Obeka, Splitter of Seconds. She's got Menace, aka Menace. Whenever Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. So it's all about utilizing the at upkeep enchantments and different cards that give you a benefit at your upkeep. So you pump up Obeka, and then you're going to get crazy amount of upkeeps, and that's how you kind of win the game. So the reason I added this one is just it is super powerful, but it's just an interesting take on, doing something additionally. It's not an additional turn, not an additional combat, but actually additional upkeep. So the first time we've seen that, and we found out with Obeka, it's very powerful. All right, last up, I believe, is Riku of Many Paths. Whenever you cast a modal spell, choose up to X, where X is the number of times you chose a mode for that spell, and you can do one of 3 things. You either exile the top card of your library, and then you can play it, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, it gains trample, or create a 1/1 blue bird. So basically, it just incentivizes you to play as many modal spells as possible. A modal spell is like this. It's like a spell that says choose one mode once or twice or however many times, and a lot of times it says you can choose the same mode more than once. But that's what's going on here. So if you play 2 modal spells, you can create a bunch of birds. So it's just added benefit to playing modal spells, which again, first time we've seen something like that. Moto spells are very common in Magic and lots of different ways to utilize this guy. I think there's even some new ones in Bloomburrow I haven't talked about yet, but having to do with pause. You pay pause, you get like 5 of them, and then you can choose certain modes. So it's like a different kind of modal spell. I believe this will work with those, and so you're going to get even more support. I think Riku's a really fun and interesting commander. Oh, no, we have one more. Roxanne Starfall Savant. So when she enters, you create a tapped colorless artifact called a Meteorite. And when Meteorite enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target, and then add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. So basically, you get these Meteorites are actually going to tap for 2 if she's on the board, and then whenever she attacks or she comes into play, you create a Meteorite. So just a new token and just a fun thing to play around. You can do multiple combats, you can blink her and do different things, which is harder to do in Gruul, but that's the idea with this deck, and I've seen it played on one commander show, and looks like it'd be a fun one to play around with. Modern Horizons 3, this is the pre-con commander for the energy deck, and it's Satya, Aetherflux Genius, Menace Haste. When Satya Aetherflux Genius attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of up to 1 target non-token creature you control. You get 2 energy at the beginning of the next end step. Sacrifice that token unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. So again, you can take cards from Fallout 3 and cards from MH3, and you can come up with a deck, and you can also start with the pre-con and kind of build off of that. I think that the token thing, doubling the tokens, is a lot of fun, and Jeskai doesn't have enough good commanders, so this probably wouldn't be as high. It may not even made the list, but the fact that it's in Jeskai to me is what really puts it up there, because Jeskai is terrible. There's just so many terrible commanders. There's just not a lot to choose from, and I'm one of those guys. I like to try to build. I'm doing the hey, I want to build a commander deck in every single color combination. So that's what I got going on with why I like this guy. So also just doing the energy theme and doing it in an interesting way. Next up, Kozilek, the Broken Reality. Eldrazi are so stupidly broken. The Annihilator mechanic to me is just, I don't know. It is fury-inducing, salty, whatever you want to call it. So I like this guy because he doesn't do the Annihilator thing. And I think he also provides an interesting way to build a commander deck. So whenever you cast a spell, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hand. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. Other colorless creatures you control get +3/+2. So you're going to manifest 2 cards from your hand, and then you're going to drop this 9/9. So you're going to have a 9/9 on the field for 9. Also 2/2 plus 3/2, so that's going to be a 5/4. So 2 5/4s and a 9/9 when this comes in, and I think that's really a ton of power and a lot of fun. Just a big stompy commander. Just stay away from Annihilator. All right, next up is Philia Exuberant Shepherd. She's got Flash. Whenever Philia Exuberant Shepherd attacks, exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent at the beginning of the next end step. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it's entered under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Philia. So Philia can be kind of a commander slash, blink commander. This is in white. There's tons of support for blink. I just think this would be a fun commander to build. You get that blink in the command zone, and then on top of that, you get a big body over time. So kind of fun. Next up is Arna. Kennerud. I don't know. That's the best I got. I was going to say I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but I gave it a go. All right, so flying, lifelink, discard a card. It's the ward. Whenever a modified creature you control attacks, double the number of each kind of counter on it. So this is going to be a keyword, or not really keyword, but you're going to try and get every type of counter that you can on your creatures. Then for each non-token permanent attached to it, so again, And I think this is what more people build around. You create a token that's a copy of that permanent attached to that creature. So like auras and artifacts that aren't legendary, you're going to attach onto this creature, and every time you attack, you're going to, boom, you're going to add even more. So it doesn't even have to be this creature. I think it can be any creature. So basically you're going to double up on enchantments and artifacts. So it's kind of a fun equipment deck. All right, Genku Future Shaper. Whenever another non-token permanent you control leaves the battlefield, choose one that hasn't been chosen, and you're just going to create a bunch of tokens. So you get a 2/2 Fox, a 1/2 Moonfolk, and a 1/1 Rat, and then you can pay 5 to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. I just think this is a more interesting token commander in Azorius. And Azorius, like, to me, it's just like Jeskai doesn't have a lot of great commanders. I know a lot of people probably would disagree with that, but for the way I like to build and play, I have a hard time finding Azorius commanders that I like. I think this one's interesting enough. It would be worth trying to create a deck around. All right, next up is Imskir Iron Eater. He's a demon with affinity for artifacts. So it's a artifact theme in Rakdos. This could be treasures, this could be just regular equipment, it could be anything. But when he enters the battlefield, you draw X cards, you lose X life, where X is half the number of artifacts you control rounded down. You can then pay 4 to sacrifice an artifact, and it deals damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value to any target. So this isn't completely the treasure theme, because you could actually sacrifice artifacts, so mana rocks and other and big artifacts costed cards. That way you can basically do a bunch of damage to any target, to the face or to other creatures. It's just a cool different commander. I don't know if this works, if this would be good. However, I think that you could build something that would be really powerful and fun. All right, next up is Necrobloom. I think everyone's heard of this one. This is a very popular commander from Modern Horizons 3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 plant. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, create zombies instead. Land cards in your graveyard have Dredge 2. So Dredge means you are going to return a land from your graveyard and mill 2 cards instead of drawing a card. So that's basically so that you can something like Gitrog, and then I forget there's another one, it's like Kalia in the Gitrog, I think that's the right name, but both really strong with this. This is just a super strong deck, really strong theme in this color combination, but just something a little bit different, and something this color combination has really been looking for a while. All right, next up, Roshin Roaring Prophet. When she enters the battlefield, mill 6 cards. You may put a card with X in its mana cost among them into your hand. Reveal any number of cards with X in their mana cost if you tap her, and add 2 colorless mana for each card revealed this way. Spend this mana only on costs that contain X. So this is like basically, let's be honest, it's a Hydra commander, but she's a giant shaman. So, I mean, there's probably better Hydra commanders out there, but we haven't seen one in a while, so I think this was worth adding just for that reason. I think this would be fun to build a Hydra deck with. All right, next up, Quorum the Undertaker. Quorum the Undertaker gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest power among creatures in all graveyards. When Quorum attacks, each player mills a card. So this is like you're milling everybody to make this guy really powerful. So this is kind of like a Voltron commander, but also just let me read the rest of this. During each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard. So also a graveyard recursion deck. So Voltron with graveyard recursion, a little bit unique. Like, you don't just have the recursion going on, you also have kind of a Voltron thing as well. The only problem I see with this guy is you better get some protection on him quick, because he is going to be target number 1 as soon as he hits the battlefield, especially with that 5 toughness. So if he stays on the field, he's going to end games quickly. It's a really strong commander, but a different take, which is good. All right, next up is Assassin's Creed. So I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm a little naive on Assassin's Creed. I just really wasn't into it. I thought it was overpriced. I didn't think it was worth getting into. I looked at these cards just for this video, and I think these ones look kind of interesting as far as commanders go, but I would not buy cards for this set, to be honest. It's just too expensive for what they are. Alright, so Altair is a human assassin first strike. When he attacks, exile up to one target assassin from your graveyard with memory counter. Then for each creature card you own in exile with a memory counter, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Exile those tokens at end of combat. So basically it's exiling cards from your graveyard and then creating copies of those, so it's kind of like an interesting recursion thing, and then you exile them at the end of combat, so it's like a one-time recursion. Next up, Bashim. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. It can't be blocked this turn. This triggers only once each turn. Whenever it deals combat damage, put a 1/1 counter on it. This is just fun. I like it, and it's a cheap cost Dimir, and it's not doing mill. So Dimir does so much mill that I think that doing a historic theme is a lot of fun, and I could see this guy actually being fun to build, and again, doing something different in that set. All right. Edward Kenway. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each tapped assassin, pirate, and or vehicle you control. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of that player's library and exile it face down. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. So steal your stuff, and then it's also doing an assassin's, pirate, and vehicle theme, which I think is a lot of fun. I think this would be more fun as a vehicle commander, but I can understand wanting to try and do the assassin thing. There's lots of pirate stuff out there, but just fun and cool commander. All right, Shay Cormac. I've talked a little bit about this guy. I think this guy actually would be a fun one to build. I love this ability to remove. Basically, it's a better. What is that card? Shadow Spear. Shadow Spear has kind of, removes the indestructible for one. This is putting it on a creature, and it removes all protection. And then whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes the target of a spell, so you could do a crime theme with this, or ability you control. You put a bounty counter on that creature. Whenever a creature with a bounty counter on it dies, put 2 1/1 counters. So every time you kill something, you're going to get 2 1/1 counters. So basically, let's say you drop this turn 1, then turn 2 you play Shoot the Sheriff. You're going to get +2/+2, so he's going to be a 3/3. So he's kind of a Voltron crime kind of thing, and I think it's a lot of fun. I'd actually build this guy. All right, next up is Socrates. Socrates has hexproof as long as it's untapped. It has defender. Till end of turn, target creature gains. If this creature would deal combat damage to a player, prevent that damage. That creature's controller and that player each draw half that many cards, rounded down. So basically, this prevents damage and creates card draw for you and another person. So it's kind of a group hug kind of theme. So that's I think that's different for Azorius, and I think that a lot of people are building this because it looks like a lot of fun. And we'll talk about the latest set, Bloomborough. I have a commander video or spoiler video that I did on this, and Biza was one of the cards that we took a look at, and I think she's really strong. It says that she basically, if an opponent has anything more than you, you're going to get a benefit. So it's a blink kind of. And you could do this actually group hug. I didn't mention that in my video, but you could give all your, opponent stuff, and then when you do, then Biza's going to get you more stuff. So just an idea, but I think it's just a fun and interesting card. I think a lot of people are going to build this as maybe a commander, but I do like it in just a lot of 99s as well. This I think is a great commander. Also, again, could fit into the Chatterfang deck. Other squirrels you control have Menace. You can sack a food and create a squirrel. And then you can forage to put a 1/1 counter on each squirrel you control. Forage being exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sack a food. Glarb. I've done a video on this guy. I'm doing a how to commander deck. So if you guys are interested in that, I did an intro on kind of what I'm thinking about this, but he is a I forget the name, black, green, blue, death touch. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You can play lands and cast spells, mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library. You can tap them in Surveil too. Surveil is basically you look at the top 2 cards, because it's a 2, and you can either put them back on top of your deck or you can put them in your graveyard. So you're going to get a graveyard recursion thing, and then a mana value 4 or greater matters kind of deck. So a lot of fun. I'm actually really excited to build this. I also kind of am doing kind of a frog theme. So I love that he's a frog, and look at that art, man. The art in the set is just unbelievable. Love the art. Mira Trash Tactician. I've talked about this one too. I think this expend mechanic is a lot of fun. I'll probably put this in the 99 of my loot deck, because when you expend 8, you exile the top 2 cards until the end of your next turn. You can play those cards. So just a lot of fun to basically get impulse card draw, and then you can gain life, and just I love the raccoon, and it's got the raccoon tribal thing going on. I don't know how many raccoons are going to be in Bloomburrow, if there's enough to actually make this work, but even if you just get one other raccoon, you're going to get 2 mana. So great commander card, lots of fun. Bria, Riptide Rogue. So I actually have built this deck as well. I think this is an interesting take on Spellslinger because it gives your other creatures prowess, so you can just kind of build around. You don't have to build a bunch of, you don't have to put in a bunch of prowess creatures. Like, this is going to give them prowess, so you can kind of build around copies and different things like that. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you copy it, and then you're going to get double the effect, and all your creatures are going to have prowess. If they already have prowess, it doubles up. Just a really powerful and fun commander. Oh, and whenever you cast a target creature, so they become unblockable too. So great card. Yigra, Eater of All. Ward is sacrifice of food. Other creatures are food. It's just kind of fun. Turn your creatures into food, right? Because it's like a giant panther. It's very thematic. Anyways, whenever food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2/1/1 counters on Yigra. So this is I love the food theme here. And food, there's tons of support in Golgari. So yeah. Hazel of Root Bloom. This is a card I haven't talked about yet. So I think it's better than the 99, but I think this could be a great commander too if you're looking for something different to do with squirrels. Pay 2 life, tap X untap tokens you control, add X mana of any combination of colors. So if you have a bunch of squirrels, you're going to get a bunch of mana. And then at the beginning of your end step, you can create a token that's a copy of target token you control. If you have a bunch of squirrels, you're going to get 2 of those tokens instead. So you're going to create 2 squirrels every turn. This could be really strong. I think I love the Seed Miser a little bit more, but this one, the art is sick. I haven't seen the alternate art for Seed Miser, but this is awesome. This is awesome. All right, last up is Ms. Bumbleflower. Vigilance. Whenever you cast a spell, target opponent draws a card. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It gains flying till end of turn. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, you draw 2 cards. So basically, you get to, every time you cast a spell, you get to put a 1/1 counter on something. Someone else gets to draw a card. So this is a group hug kind of thing. And you're also going to give your creatures flying. And then if you do this twice, which you're going to want to do it twice because you're going to give 2 cards to different opponents, one to each of these, you're going to draw 2, so you get the added benefit. So great group hug card and Bant, which is fun because I think Bant has a lot of support for it. But yeah, just a rapid citizen, nothing big here. Hey, thanks for swinging by and checking out this video. If you like content like this, take a look at my other stuff and like and subscribe. If you guys have any commanders you think I missed that are more interesting or more fun, hit me up in the comments. Other than that, guys, have a great day. Catch you in the next one.